Let's talk about how to express then in Russian, that is, how to compare two things. In other videos, we've covered the comparative forms of adjectives, which we need to express things like newer, faster, colder, hotter, and so on. But sometimes you want to compare one thing to another. For example, to say that Spanish is simpler than Russian. In Russian, we have two ways to express than. They're both pretty straightforward, so we'll cover them both in this video. Испанский язык проще, чем русский. So one way is to use the word чем. Чем here functions just like then in English. We'll put it right after the comparative adjective проще, from простой, and note that we're also using a comma before чем. A few more examples. В Москве холоднее, чем в Париже. Борис старше, чем Ольга. Она говорит медленнее, чем ваш друг. And there's another way to express the same idea. Let's look at a few examples and see if you can identify the two differences. Испанский язык проще русского. Борис старше Ольги. Она говорит медленнее вашего друга. See the differences? We can leave чем out and instead put that second object of comparison in the genitive case. And that's why русского, Ольги, and вашего друга are all in the genitive. So we have two options. There's really no difference in meaning or level of formality or anything. You can use these two constructions interchangeably, with one important exception. Let's go back to an earlier example. В Москве холоднее, чем в Париже. Now, could we use the genitive here instead of чем? Let's look carefully. We've already got a prepositional case ending on в Париже, and we need that ending, don't we, to express location. So we can't replace it with a genitive, and we certainly don't want to try putting two case endings on a single word. So this construction, using чем, is really the only way to phrase a thought like this. So this means if we're comparing things that are in the nominative case, we can leave чем out using the genitive for that second noun. But if we need a different case, then we do have to just use чем so that we can preserve the case that's required by the context. Now, in my experience, this can be a little bit tricky, so let's look at a few more examples. Ему скучнее, чем мне. This kind of subjectless or impersonal construction needs that dative ending, so we use чем. Он думает о них чаще, чем о нас. О requires the prepositional here, so again, we have to use чем. Писать по-русски проще, чем писать по-китайски. Now here we can't put genitive endings on a verb, so we'll be sure to just use чем. Summing up, there are two ways to express then in comparisons. You can use чем, corresponding to English then, and then do remember to write a comma before чем. Or you can leave чем out and just put whatever something is being compared to in the genitive case. In terms of meaning, these are completely interchangeable, but if your context already requires some case other than the nominative, then be sure to just use the construction with чем.